I'd like to thank Brownlee LLP for sponsoring SUMA's Candidate School. Thanks to Brownlee, all candidate school sessions are being offered free of charge. Today, presenters can answer your questions on the roles and responsibilities of council. However, some questions may require a larger discussion or be beyond the scope of today's session. Those questions may not be asked during the session. During the Municipal Governance 101 session, Toby from Government Relations, Municipal Advisory Services answered many questions relating to the roles and responsibilities of council, and we encourage you to review the questions of the recording of Municipal Governance 101 that's available on SUMA's website. If you have any additional questions for advisory services, please call 306-787-2608 or email muniinfo@gov.sk.ca. SUMA encourages elected officials to seek additional education by participating in our offerings such as webinars, member meetings, and annual convention. If elected, you'll have access to all previous webinars and member resources through the SUMA member portal, and a copy of the newly elected handbook developed by SUMA will be provided to your municipality to share with you. I also encourage you to listen to SUMA's podcast, Municast, to hear insights on municipal leadership from a variety of perspectives. Municast is available on all major podcast platforms. The Municipal Leadership Development Program is also a great opportunity for elected officials to gain a deeper understanding of their role. SUMA will be hosting the Municipal Leadership Roles and Responsibilities module in January of 2025, and more information about those sessions will be released soon. Modules from the MLDP program are also held the Saturday before the SUMA Convention and Trade Show. You can visit mldp.ca to learn more about the program and see what the schedule is for fall sessions. SUMA also partners with organizations to provide services that support municipalities. One of those services is the Brownlee Municipal Helpline, and it's an informational consultation service offered free of charge to Saskatchewan municipalities. It's now my pleasure to welcome back Whitney Mosley, lawyer with Brownlee LLP. I'd also like to welcome Mayor Michelle McKenzie, Mayor for the town of Maple Creek and Vice President of Towns on the SUMA Board of Directors. They will both be responding to your questions today. I'd also like to introduce Mason Stott, Advocacy and Legal Services Advisor with SUMA, who will be moderating today's session. I'll now let Mason take it over from here.
Thanks, Stephanie. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So thanks and welcome to the session. So there's the Q&A, as Stephanie was mentioning, and you can put your questions in there. While I'm waiting for questions to get populated in the Q&A, there were some questions that were submitted ahead of time. And so I'll start with the first one of that while people get their questions into the Q&A box. And so this question is for Whitney, but because it deals with a conflict of interest issue, but Michelle can answer if she has anything to add, of course. So the question is, how do elected officials navigate the challenge of being appointed to a community board or entity, such as a library board, and then participating in council meetings without a conflict of interest?
Thanks, Mason. Yeah, so for when you act on boards, you can sometimes be put into a conflict of interest. Where a conflict of interest arises, it's important to declare the conflict, disclose what the conflict is and how it may affect sort of your impartiality as a council member. It's important to abstain from voting on any questions related to that, refrain from discussions, and to leave the room when those things are being discussed. Whether something is a conflict in any particular situation is always sort of fact dependent. So if you have questions on it, it's sometimes best to potentially seek legal advice on that.
Thanks, Brittany. And also any new council member that I have there is that I put on a committee, also have them realize that if they're feeling that they're put in a position that's jeopardizing any communications that they have or asked to put their input as a council member, that there they would declare a conflict, because again, they're not there to make decisions as council members or they're there to bring back the information to council. So again, if they're asked to do that, declare a conflict and then bring it back to council. So again, don't put yourself in a position to jeopardize your position as a council member, because you're not there, because you're one vote. You're one vote as a council member. You will then bring it back to council to have that information. You're not there to be voting on and making decisions on behalf of council.
Thanks, Whitney and Michelle. I don't see any questions yet in the Q&A. So the second one that was pre-submitted, is for Michelle, and it's, if elected as mayor, how do you start running a council meeting without experience?
Well, the first thing that you do is before, if you're running for mayor, you need to go to your municipality and ask for your council procedure bylaws, because your council procedure bylaws sets out the platform of how you as mayor will run your council meetings. It's there in black and white, because everybody has different, whether you're following Robert's Rule of Order, you know, it's in the council procedure bylaw. If anybody wants to run for mayor and hasn't been the mayor, then what you need to do is go in and talk to the CAO and have that discussion on what is expected of you in your responsibilities and roles, because the mayor is one deciding vote out of 7 or whatever your council's made up of. However, the mayor is the face of your community. Your mayor is the spokesperson of your community. And when you're looking at running a meeting, you're the person that needs to be watching everybody. So when you call the question, you don't have any conversation before the question is there. You call the question, you ask for the seconder, and then you have conversation. You need to be the person that takes charge and control of the meeting, because you're the mayor. That is where you're making sure that nobody's speaking out of turn. Everybody has a chance to be able to be heard. It is a little bit of work, but it's not intimidating to be able to do. But again, the best thing to be able to do is look at your council procedure bylaw, because that's your guideline.
I think it can also be helpful, watch a meeting, attend council meetings. Even if it's not your own municipality, just watching how municipalities generally do it can just give you a sense of what to expect. But as Michelle said, it does come down to your particular municipality's procedure bylaw.
Thanks both of you for the answers to that. So we got a question in the Q&A, and this looks like an employment law. Can you still hear me? It shut down for a...
We can hear you again now, yeah.
Okay, I'll ask this Q&A question. I'm just bringing it up here. If an administrator had been in place for almost 10 years and new council don't feel that person is a right fit, does council have right to vote for a new admin?
Yeah, so the appointment or hiring of administrator, that is a decision of council. So council has discretion whether to sort of maintain a person or hire a new person.
Can I just weigh in on that a little bit, Mason, also? So when you're looking at the right fit of a CAO and how that goes, and council does have the ultimate decision on what you're looking at, but rest assured, when it's no different than any other employee. If there has to be reason for dismissal, there has to be reason for you to be having that conversation. So it's not just as a newly elected council comes in and they don't like how things are being run. There needs to be some background. There needs to be some letters. There needs to be some things on the conduct and the personality and the misconduct of a CAO. So I caution any newly elected people that are coming through there, you need to get your feet on the ground first, understand your roles and responsibilities, and also your roles and responsibility as the mayor and council and as the CAO. Because sometimes even myself as a mayor for the last 6 years, I disagree a lot on what my administrator is saying to me, but he understands the law and the Municipalities Act and is again giving me the best advice, whether I take it or not, or council does, is still the best advice. So again, I caution people wondering what they're going to do if you're running just to get rid of a, what I will call a lemon employee.
Okay, great. Thanks for both of those answers. The next question is for both of you. Can a person go into the town office and see minutes from meetings?
Whitney, do you want to go first or do you want me to go?
You can go, Michelle.
So I know at the town of Maple Creek, our meetings are televised, and so you can watch it. Once our minutes are approved for the council meeting, they're there, you can come in and see them. Absolutely, they're open and transparent.
Great, thanks. Question from the Q&A is, can you further expand on the responsibilities that the council has versus the role of the CAO? What are each of them and what are they not? And that could be for, we'll start with Michelle.
Okay, so the roles of mayor and council, our only employee is the CAO. So as we'd give direction to the CAO. So for example, if you had a ratepayer that come up to you and as a council member or the mayor and chewed you a new one about how your employees are acting or this manager did, everything else, I don't get to, as the mayor, go and be able to speak to that manager or the employee because they're not my employees. The only employee that the mayor and council has is the CAO. So the CAO runs the town. So that comes down to we're governance. The CAO is operations, if you come down to that. So council is elected to be able to do policy, procedures, and bylaws. That is our mandate. And looking at that, the CAO then does the operational part of your community. So when you're having anything for your landfill manager, if there was a problem or direction, council gives directions to the CAO. The CAO then does give directions to managers and the operational piece of that. Those are the difference between the roles and responsibility of council. Council needs to realize where they're at. They're there to do policy, procedures, and bylaws. They're the governance of the organization. CAO is the operation.
I think that was pretty thorough. Just to say, again, council is really broad sort of decision making. Attend council meetings, review your agenda packages, pass bylaws and resolutions.
Great, thanks. I'll move to a question that was submitted beforehand. And this one's specific to public disclosure forms. So it might be too specific for this setting, but I'll read it just in case Michelle or Whitney have any insights. So the question is, on the public disclosure form, should you list adult children who are not living with you and the entities they are connected to? Because the form simply says, from which I or someone in my family.
Absolutely. So when you're looking at conflict of interest or anything that comes through that arises for immediate family, friends, that comes through there. So when you're looking at adult children, whether they live with you or within the community, or any entity, I list my brothers. For example, I list my brothers because they work for a construction company and a paving company, and they might have opportunities to do work in the town of Maple Creek. So there's no way that it was ever going to come back that could be a conflict of interest. So I disclose on my conflict of, or my disclosure form, of who that might be or how that might affect anybody that is related to me that could cause a conflict of interest.
Okay, great, thanks. Another question in the Q&A is, this individual previously sat on a council in Alberta that had a CAO, and now they live in a town that has a town manager. What are the differences in responsibilities between a town CAO and a town manager? Maybe start with Michelle on that one.
That one to me is tough, because to me there's no difference, because to be able to be a town manager still needs to have the credentials to be able to legally host a meeting, to be attend a meeting, to do all the information that is coming to give proper guidance to council. So it, instead of saying a CAO, it's a town manager or a city manager. There's difference. They still need to have the criteria to have that administrative certificate.
Great, thanks. I'll move to another question that was pre-submitted, and it is, what is allowed to be communicated to the citizens and by whom?
So I'm just wondering, is there more to the context of that? So everything is able to be communicated to the citizens, except if it was an in-camera session. And when you are able, there's reasons why you move into in-camera session, and that has to do with, if it has to do with economic development for the future state, if there's needs to be privacy for somebody that's starting a business. And the second is to do with staffing, or if it has to do with future planning. So future planning comes down to, again, strategic plan, finances, and different things. So there's a reason you're moving in camera, because those discussions need to be open and frank, which aren't there for the public. But once the decisions are made and council comes back out of an in-camera session, that is available for the public. So like anything is available for the public to be able to ask the question and come in and say. There should be nothing that is secret for the ratepayers.
Yeah, so the general policy again is things are open to the public, subject to the Local Authority Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. So as Michelle was alluding to, where things go in camera, it's because that act says certain things are not public. So it includes, there's various things that are prescribed, such as the things that Michelle mentioned. There's also a few other things, such as legal advice and other things prescribed in the act.
Great, thanks for those answers. We'll go to Whitney for this next one. And the question in the Q&A is council allowed to vote on a policy that deals with hiring and letting go of staff members?
I'm not sure on that one, so I'd have to think more about that one.
Michelle, do you have any comments on that?
Well, Mason, I was just wondering where or what they're trying to get at. Like, so we have if there's a policy on hiring an employee, then the CEO has to follow the policy. If there is a flaw in the policy, that policy then is directed from council to administration to fix the policy that aligns within the municipality. So, but as for firing, there's steps within every municipality on what they're doing. So if it's a union worker, there's different things that need to come through there. So if the CEO decides that there is significant reason to let somebody go, that is the CEO's responsibility, because again, council only has one employee, and that is the CEO. So when we're looking at the operation piece of this, council should not have anything, but they should look at that policy and see if there's flaws in the policy that they might want to look and have and give direction for the administration to change. But they don't get to vote on whether that person is hired or fired. Does that make sense?
Okay, great. Thank you. Another pre-submitted question was, how should council meetings be held so that audience and citizens also know what is in reports? Or are reports just for council? And we'll go to Michelle for that.
No, so I guess again, it depends on where you are and how you're doing your council meetings. I'll take the town of Maple Creek, for instance. Our meetings are televised via Zoom, and you can watch them, but our reports are all there. Soon as our council package is released to council, it is also released, except for an in-camera. If there's an in-camera portion of anything that needs to be done, anybody can read it and they can look at them. Before we got into televising, if anybody wanted to come in there and to see those reports are public knowledge. It's not just for council. It should be open and transparent to anybody. If you wanted to see what the director of operations gave you a report on the water treatment plant, it's there for you to review.
And so this next question, I think it was largely just answered, but I'll let Michelle or Whitney if they have anything to add. And it's, once a project is complete, are reports available to the ratepayers, such as a Sask water feasibility report, even though the municipality chose not to go that route? Anything to add, or mostly, reports available to the public?
So I'm just confused on that question just a little bit there, Mason. And so whoever is asking the question, so if council decided to make a decision and not go the route for a Sask water report, their decision is recorded as a resolution. You might not be able to hear, unless you were at the council meeting, to hear the debate on why or how it was. However, if like the town of Maple Creek, if you were able to see and listen, you'd be able to see why that might not have went through. So I'm not quite understanding what is meeting by a Sask water report, because any reports that are done by Sask water or anything else needs to be there are able to be able to read in the minutes. So I'm not quite too sure on that question, Mason.
Okay, thanks. Follow-up questions are also allowed. So if the person who submitted that wants any further clarification, they can type it in the Q&A. A pre-submitted question was, what is the best course for a driven member of the community to apply and successfully join the city council or recreational board? And we'll start with Michelle on that.
So can you read that again, Mason?
Yep, for sure. Was, what is the best course for a driven member of the community to apply and successfully join city council or a recreational board?
So a German member, is that what I'm hearing?
Sorry, driven member.
Oh, a driven.
Driven. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
So again, if you want to run for council, nominations are open. You go in and you pick up your nomination forms. It depends on where you're at. For towns of size, different sizes is how many names you need to have on your nomination form. Complete your nominations and bring it back in, and then there you are. That's your commitment to putting your name and letting it stand. And as for different boards, it just depends on whether they're boards of council or just boards of the town. So if they're boards of council and there's expression of interest that's not a council member, watch those, because again, your community should be putting out an expression of interest to anybody that wants to sit on a board. So if you're very driven and want to do this and you're thinking this is something you want to do, go pick up your nomination papers and put your name and let it stand for council.
There was a follow-up question, or a different question submitted. In a village with a small population base, say about 120, how many councillors minimum maximum should the municipality have?
I think, Whitney, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this changes. That goes up to, you can either have a mayor and 3 councillors, or a mayor and 7 or 6 councillors. It depends on what the village will come up with, or the town will, because again, but you need to decide those factors before your election date. So again, the town of Maple Creek, we had a conversation of if we were going to look at changing our councillors, because right now we have 6 councillors and a mayor. So again, we looked at reducing that down to 4 councillors and a mayor. and how that might look like, and whether that will serve the purpose of the town and the interest and stuff. So that comes down to the village, the town, and cities on how there are. But again, I don't think there's a minimum of a number that is set in stone. I think there's a minimum and a maximum. Whitney?
Sorry, yes, there's a minimum. Again, it depends on the size of your municipality, I believe. I think it's just a mayor and at least 2 councillors. And then beyond that, it's what your municipality determines.
Okay, great, thanks. So there weren't any more pre-submitted questions, and I don't see any questions in the Q&A. So if anyone has any last questions, please go ahead and type them and submit them now. And I'll just give a second to see if anything gets submitted. Stephanie, did I miss any questions?
No, you've got all the ones that I saw.
Oh, here's one that just came in. How much engagement should the CAO and admin assistant have at the council table apart from guidance?
None. If you're following your roles and responsibility of the CAO and council and mayor, they're there to guide you, make recommendations. Council's debate is council's debate. Their decision is the rule. Like, I'm sorry, council and the admin assistant are there to provide guidance, not make the ruling. Council and mayor are the governing body. And I was just wondering, Mason, while I have you on and I'm here, is there any questions in the chat that we missed?
There was one question in the chat, but I think it might be better suited for government relations advisory services, so we pointed them in that direction. There's a couple other questions. Just looking here, just a second. Is there a good course for a new member to take to help navigate being on council?
If you're elected, absolutely. You need to get into those MLDPs. Try your best that needs to be there because they're answered. Like there's the new council, Stephanie, the roles and responsibility of a new council member is coming up. There's different things that are there. So if there's anybody that is elected and looking through those things, those MLDPs are the key to everything because they walk you through everything. You look at that, you learn. So if you're there, I strongly encourage you to take those MLDPs. SUMA has lots of educational sessions that are on there. Look at those because again, they walk you through it. It just makes you a stronger, better council person.
This is a follow-up question, might actually be for Stephanie. Where can we find information on MLDP?
So you can go to mldp.ca. That's where the information about the entire program is listed. For the municipal leadership roles and responsibilities courses specifically, SUMA will be hosting 2 of those in January. One will be in Prince Albert and one will be in Moose Jaw. And more information will be available about those on SUMA's website, and they will also be listed on the MLDP website.
And here's a question for Whitney. If there is only one mayoral candidate, do they win the seat by default?
I was just looking at the Local Government Election Act. So stand by.
I do believe, like Whitney, that is, if there's nobody there and there's only one name, you're acclaimed as the mayor.
Thanks.
That is also something that can be checked in with Government Relations Advisory Services at that phone number or email listed in the chat.
And one of the participants is just writing a follow-up question on the one question that was about the reports. Oh, and here it just came through. So this might be a bit specific for this forum, but I'll read the question. A Sask Water report was sent back to Sask Water with a motion of council, basically requesting to not share it. Several in our community wanted to see what the capital and ongoing costs would have been and have been denied the report several times. Are certain reports not required to be released?
I struggle with this one. But when we were talking about when you were going in camera and in discussion of future state, and Whitney, you can help me with these things. Sometimes it comes down to future planning and what that looks like for the municipality for funding and different things like that. They could be held. But that would be just because of what that looks like for going into financial different things when you're looking at raising taxes and how those might be. But most of the time, what might not be disclosed at the time, because there could be further investigation on behalf of the advice of council going into administration on what this might look like. So that might be the only reason that I would see that report would be held, or a decision that's coming through there that wasn't there, is because there'd be more investigation on what was in that report that needs to come through for a decision of council, which could be then again because future planning and yeah, that's all I can think of. Whitney, do you have anything there?
Again, it all just comes down to whether content's protected by the local authority Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act. Sometimes entire reports are sort of not public. Sometimes just parts of reports are redacted. So it really comes down to specific reports.
And when we're talking about the Freedom of Privacy and Information Act, you can there is ways that you are able to obtain that information. But there's forms, there's different things that you need to do there. There's a fee to be able to have that information. There's not that you're not able to have it. There's just different ways to obtain it.
Okay, great. Thanks for those answers. So I don't see anything else in the Q&A or in the webinar chat. So I'm just taking a quick look to make sure I didn't miss anything. There was another question in the Q&A that just came in. Can an elected councillor have a monthly coffee morning to engage with community, or is that something that has to be okayed by the council? Start with Michelle, or Whitney is unmuting yourself.
Sorry, go for it, Michelle.
Okay. Well, one of the things is if you're elected as an elected official, if you want to meet with your constituents that elected you and have that coffee and have that information that's brought forward to you, that is totally fine. It doesn't have to be sanctioned by council. One of the things is you're elected by your ratepayers to represent them and have your voice heard. So if you were planning on something that you want to do, to have that information and bring forward to the council member, by all means. Doesn't mean that once you're elected, that you speak on issues of council, because that's not what you're there for. You're there to take the issues from your ratepayers back to the council table and have their voices heard there. But you don't make no decisions. You don't give no promises. You're there to listen. That is the hardest thing that I think as an elected official, people have a hard time doing, because they take their complaints and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to do that. You're one voice at the table, but you're their voice at the table. So if you wanted to have your coffee and your news and hear what your ratepayers are saying and bring those to the table, absolutely, because that's what you're elected to do.
Great, thanks for that answer. So I don't see any more questions. Stephanie, do you see anything that I missed? I think I got them all.
I am not seeing, pardon me, sorry. I'm not seeing anything on my end either. So with that then, if there are any other questions, we can still ask them, but I want to thank you very much, Whitney and Michelle, for sharing your expertise with us this evening. I really hope that those who have joined us feel more confident in making their decision to run for municipal governance. I'm going to pop up a poll here on the screen. If you could please take a moment to fill this out, that would be greatly appreciated, as it does help SUMA with our educational offerings. I'd like to thank everyone very much for taking the time to be here this evening. We have come to the end of our questions, it looks like. So if you do have anything else, please feel free to add that now, or to fill out the poll and take the rest of your evening.
Can I say one last word, Stephanie?
Sorry, yes, just I'm going to answer one quick question that came in here, and then I'll let you take it away, Michelle. So there is just a question that came in asking if this will be put on YouTube, and yes, it will be put on SUMA's YouTube page. So that's SUMA Connect on YouTube. It will also be on SUMA's website under events and candidate school. And go ahead, Michelle.
Well, again, for anybody that is watching and thinking this is something that you might want to do, take the step. Put your name in, get your nomination papers, and do it, because there's nothing more rewarding when you see what the work that you've done for your community and others. And again, there's always challenges, there is. And one of the things is it's a steep learning curve, because again, you're coming in there and you're thinking you're changing the world, but you're only one vote, but you're still one vote, and you're still elected to be able to do the job. So if you're thinking about it and you're on the fence, do it. I'm telling you, just do it.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. And thanks, Whitney, also for your time.
Mason, it looks like Kathy Evans has one more question.
Oh, yeah. Do counselors need to give consent to be recorded?
Recorded as what? Like, I'm unsure of that. Like, because
I'm wondering if it means recorded during a council meeting, in a Zoom council meeting.
well, that'll go within your council procedure bylaws. That will already be there and determined. So if you're in a Zoom meeting, and if you're that's how your council procedure bylaws, if you're able to attend by Zoom, of course you'll be recorded. So it all comes down to what is in your council procedure bylaw. So I guess if it doesn't address a Zoom meeting, because any meeting needs to be constitution, right? You can't have a council meeting without an administrator. It has to be legal meeting. So I'm just reading in the chat, it doesn't address it in old bylaw. So again, moving within the 21st or 24th centuries, when moving your community forward, that's one of the roles and responsibilities as a new council member, is to be looking at those bylaws and old bylaws and giving direction for them to change. So again, if you're thinking about whether you should run for council or not run for council, those are some of the things that you need to address. Is when you're looking at old bylaws, they need to be fixed and addressed. I hope that helps. I'm just, yeah, I'm not too sure about where it goes to with the Zoom, because it should still have, if you're doing meetings by Zoom, it should be part of your council procedure bylaw on how those meetings are being held and hosted and run.
Okay, great. Thanks, Michelle. Stephanie, did you have any other closing comments, or should we the meeting for tonight?
Yeah, that was going to be it. I was just going to thank Whitney and Michelle again for being here, and to thank the attendees. And I hope that everyone that attended and watched the recording gained some valuable takeaways from the responses provided by Michelle and Whitney tonight.
Okay, we'll see you all later.
Enjoy your evening.